Roger Marshall's here, Kansas U.S. Senator. Good morning, Senator. Thanks for being on KCMO. Always appreciate your time.
You bet, Pete. Good morning. Merry Christmas to you, your family. You're doing a great job. I appreciate a voice for conservatism going across the streams of Kansas and Missouri.
Yeah, and by the way, this new signal is all the way out to almost your old stomping grounds there in Manhattan. So you're reaching a lot more Kansans than you were under the old frequency we had here. So let's start off. I saw your tweet, of course, yesterday. Zelensky was in town. Republicans are trying to get just the border secured in exchange for some Ukraine funding. But what was happening there in the U.S. Senate yesterday?
Well, not enough. That's for sure. I think this is the third visit for President Zelensky coming here. I probably received 30 briefings on Ukraine. You know, the entire military industrial group is up here trying to sell more weapons to Ukraine. So there's a lot of pressure on Capitol Hill to buy more weapons for Ukraine. But my focus is the border. And that's all I've been talking about now for several months. When President Biden said he wanted Ukraine funding, he put a package together, included Israel funding, and mysteriously made the border actually less secure, trying to sell it to the American public as something else. So I'm remaining focused on the border. And meanwhile, the president's trying to sell America on Ukraine. Why in the world would we take care of someone else's border before we take care of our own?
You know, is it possible that there is a way to be willing to assist Ukraine, but also, as you're noting, which is obvious to anyone who's got common sense, that we are now funding somebody else's border to the tune of billions of dollars while allowing ours to be open to anybody who can basically pay the Mexican drug cartels enough money to get through? Like, I know we've made it into an either-or proposition. I don't blame Republicans for doing that because, you know what, at some point you got to put your foot down and say enough's enough. But there is a way where you guys are willing to give Ukraine a little bit more money in exchange for just doing what we should be doing from the get-go, which is solving our own border crisis, right?
Right. So I view this as a once-in-a-generation opportunity to secure a border. We never even got to the bargaining table before. You know, I thought about this, Pete, this morning. If you were at the White House and you were interviewing the president, I would think that one of your questions to him would be, why do we have to beg the president of the United States to secure a border? Or if you were an advisor to the president, what would be your argument for not securing the border? Why are Republicans having to beg? But I'm pointing out the obvious here to your listeners. The president does not want to secure this border. If he wanted to, there's a way. And certainly, if we can use this as leverage, kind of fighting back on this Ukraine funding, really quickly in the Ukraine funding, 49 Republican senators, there's 49 views on what we should do with Ukraine funding. Glad to have that debate, but I'm not even willing to talk about a number until we have a meaningful offer from the White House on how to secure a border. And I'm going to finish up just by saying, look, it has to include some type of changes on asylum and on parole as well. If we change the asylum rules and the parole rules as well, we would take account for 3/4 of the people crossing the border. We would stop 3/4 of the people crossing the border with policy changes alone.
So what does this look like then? Because yesterday, Zelensky was obviously on Capitol Hill, and, you know, Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell, Democrat and Republican, were hand in hand, side by side. Is this really something, and you can speak to this as a former House member, that's going to have to be won in the House, and you guys in the Senate are unfortunately just going to have to go along with whatever the House ends up doing? Is that where we're at right now?
I don't know if it's quite that simple, but I'm certainly glad and agree with Speaker Johnson putting his foot down and saying that H.R. 2 is the start of securing the border. And until the White House agrees with H.R. 2, which includes those asylum changes, parole changes, building the wall, more Border Patrol officers, the things that if you and I were in charge and said, go secure the border, those are things that we would want to get done. So he's drawn a line in the sand. He's sending his people home tomorrow. So there's no use of us staying up here. Really, the way this gets done, Pete, is the White House gets in the room with Leader McConnell and Speaker Johnson and makes some type of a deal on border security. And I'm telling you, this president is not willing to do this, and therefore it's time for us to tell them, go to hell. We're going to go home, and when you give us a meaningful offer, then we'll come back to the table. Yeah, we've all seen it happen. We've all had a situation where you had to walk away from buying a house or from buying a car and just let the other person come back to the table. And right now, the White House isn't even negotiating in any type of good faith when it comes to securing the border.
Roger Marshall, Kansas U.S. Senators on KCMO. I know you know some of your colleagues very well, even those on the other side of the aisle that might be a bit more moderate in nature. I mean, do they really think this is a winning argument for them to prioritize Ukraine funding over a secure southern border? What are they saying privately, out of curiosity?
Right. No, they don't. Every day, more and more Democrat senators are coming to me and saying, gosh, we hope you guys can figure out a way to solve this border issue because our Democrat states are just getting overran. It's expensive, blah, blah, blah. We're this country spending $500 billion a year to take care of these 10 million illegal migrants that have crossed our border under Joe Biden. $500 billion a year. How many schools and roads and bridges could we build with that type of money? How many people could we feed with that type of money as well? So privately, they're saying that they hope we get it done, but they need an excuse for it to pass. They need to be able to go back to their base and say, the reason we allowed the border to be secure was we had to get this funding for Ukraine. So if that's their excuse to get it by, then so be it. And then you throw Israel into this, and it makes it even more complicated. Pete, today, I don't know if you remember, about a month ago, I told you we had a couple tricks up our sleeve on Israel, and one of them we accomplished. We took control of the floor, even though we were in the minority. I worked out Mike Lee and I concocted a plan where we literally took over the floor and forced the Democrats to vote on a stand-alone Israel bill. That's what we need to do 2 months ago, is send a message to Iran and Hamas that America is standing with Israel. And I'm going to give them another chance today. We're going to go to the floor today and offer them an opportunity to vote on standalone Israel bill. This will be the 5th time they voted against that as well.
Wow. So you're going to do that today, and unfortunately, you already know the outcome.
Oh, yeah. They won't even – there's a parliamentary maneuver where they can force us not even to have a vote. Now, I got around that one time, the Mike Lee and my plan. We forced a vote on every one of them. So today they'll have a parliamentary procedure way they can circumvent the vote. But I'm going to give them a chance, saying Republicans want to fund Israel, even without using IRS agents, all that funding. We say, look, however you want to do it, we need to fund Israel yesterday. Let's get this to the president's desk today.
All right. That's good stuff. Kansas U.S. Senator Roger Marshall on KCMO. Before I let you go, I know you're trying to solve all the issues up there in D.C. You're a doctor by trade, so I know you've got good, soft hands. How's your 40 time? Could you possibly play wide receiver for the Chiefs right now?
Wow, Pete, I don't know what to say. I'm just beside myself. I think it's as much mental, maybe a little lack of mental concentration going on this post-Super Bowl year. Maybe they've ate a little too many Twinkies and they're just lost a little step or something. I don't know. Maybe Taylor needs to come in and give him a little pep talk about how to catch a ball.
I'm just glad you're not blaming Taylor. I mean, she's right here in your home state hanging out with Travis. Today's her 34th birthday, and I know that she's listening to 95.7 FM, so I'm glad you're not blaming her. Too many people are doing that. I think that's wildly unfair.
No. Happy birthday to Taylor Swift, and I tell you what, she's got quite a catch there. Travis Kelce is one of the most effervescent personalities I've ever met. He's the real deal. I think that he should run for Congress sometime.
Hey, now we're talking. All right, Roger Marshall, great to have you on. I like where your head's at, and keep up the good work. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Pete. Merry Christmas again to everybody.
You as well. Merry Christmas. Roger Marshall on KCMO Talk Radio.